Today we're going to be going over our fur tutorial, so let's get right into it. We're going to start off working just with a sphere, but I do have this doll model up on the Discord if you do want to follow along with putting hair on that doll once we get to it. But for now I'm just going to pop in a sphere, and we'll get started from here. Sphere from here. So, for hair and fur, we're actually going to be working with our particle system. So that menu set is over here on the right. It's these four dots all connected. And to apply the particle system, you're just going to hit that plus sign and it'll make a new system. The default one that pops up is like the raindrop style emitter. But what we want, once we rewind, is the hair option. So you have emitter or hair. I'm going to click hair, and you can see right away we have a nice spike ball. So I'm going to go over just general settings for this. It's not going to be like how to make a certain type of fur or anything. So the first setting you might want to play with is the number of hair and then their length. So number over here, I've read that 2,000 for a head of hair is recommended, but for like full body hair, for like an animal or something, you'll probably need a lot more. But we are actually going to be using children later down the line, which is gonna do like 100 times the amount that you currently have on here. So the number is really setting how many parents you have. So I'm just going to leave mine at 1,000. Seed is just like what random version of placement it is. And then hair length will be our length. So let me put this at like 0.5 meters. You also have this source tab that I don't think, usually you're not going to need to change anything in here, but you can change how those hairs are placed across the mesh. So default is faces. You can change it to vertices if you like. There's also either a jittered distribution or a random distribution. The difference being that jittered has a more even placement across all of the faces. Random is just completely random, which could end up being like really thick patches or really, sorry, my cat's like on my foot. Why are we doing this? Hair dynamics is next. That's mostly gonna just be for if you're gonna be animating the hair, so I would not recommend it. Render and viewport display. There are gonna be handy things later on that we deal with in the render tab. For now, I would recommend just increasing this steps amount. Steps it's kind of basically how many like vertices are along each hair. So the more steps you have, the more fluid and natural it can look. So I'm gonna just pop mine both up to like 5 or 6 for render and viewport. Render and viewport, they have very similar settings. It's just saying how it will look in the viewport compared to how it will actually look in the render. But I'm just gonna put the same amount. We'll do some more things in the render at the end of the tutorial. And then we have hair shape. So hair shape is how we can actually choose how thick the hairs are. So to actually be able to see this, you're going to need to go into your render preview. So now is when hopefully we do not crash. And then you also want to be in cycles. So make sure you swap from Eevee to cycles. If you're in Eevee, you should still, oh my gosh, we're already on that computer's downfall. In Eevee, I'll still only see like lines. But if I switch over to cycles, I should see a little bit of thickness on my hairs. So let me zoom in on these hairs before we do the shape. So I'm going to start off with the diameter of the root and tip, which is pretty self-explanatory. The root is going to change the thickness of the hair at the root, and then the tip will change the thickness at the tip. So you could use these controls to make anything that isn't hair. So the hair part of particles, you can use it to make grass, like hair, like head hair, body fur, wool, like a really wide variety of like soft coverings. For hair specifically and fur, I would recommend keeping your tip at 0 because it will like go down to that very fine point. And the strand shape, so above that strand shape, this setting is to change the shape. If this is my hair, it's gonna like change it to like be more concave or convex, if I'm using those words in the right scenarios. But the higher positive number is going to make it curve from the root to the tip, with the most intense part of the curve being up near the root. And then if you go negative, a higher negative number is going to have the most intense part of the curve be at the tip of your hair. So you can refine the shape. I'm so sorry, my cats just always choose right when I'm doing things to have epic battles. So now that we have the like number, the length, the shape of them all set, we're going to make children. So we have our children tab down here. We have 3 settings. None means it's only the parents. There are no children. We have simple and we have interpolated. So simple, it's basically making 10 children around each of the parent hairs. So if we have areas where there's more parent hairs closer together, there's going to be like a lot more children there compared to when they're more spread apart. That's the simple version of children. The interpolated makes it where it pays attention to how far apart the parents are from each other, so it's going to spread out the children a little bit better. So I'm going to do interpolated. And now you can go back to the viewport shading, because now we'll just have like all these little children hairs. We don't need the shape for now. But I do want to show really quick that, so this is my viewport amount of hair, which is set to 10. So 10 children per parent basically. But the render is going to have 100 children per parent. So because my computer should hopefully still be doing its best. Who knows at this point? Okay, yes. So this is how much hair is actually going to be on my model when I render. So it's still going to be looking a little bit sparse, but when you actually do the render, there's going to be a lot more hair on there. Perfect fuzzy ball. But just for the sanity of my computer, we are going to keep it at 10, and we are going to try to work in our simple shaded viewport. This is a very hardware intensive process, so save often, work in a separate viewport if you need, close out of all the PDFs and Adobes. So that's what the amount option is under the children. I don't know why I keep saying the children. We also have length. So at the default setting, when we move this length around, it looks like we can either have 1, which is like 100% of the length we had previously set, or we can do a fraction of that. So 0.5 is going to be like half the length. And you can see it's changing all of the hair's length. But let me put this at like 0.5. If I change the threshold number, this is what can change how many hairs are being influenced by this length change. So if I do 0.5 at 0.5, I have half of the hairs at half of the length. So you can do this to really easily add a little bit like more diversity to the length of your hair, so it's like a little bit more natural. This is my hair length. So I'm just probably going to do it like ever so slightly shorter, just to add a little bit of unevenness to the hair lengths. And then seed is again the same thing, where it's just like the different random variation of it, the same thing. And then all of these menus below this are going to be like to get the characteristics of the hairs. So if you have straight hair, curly hair, if you want to try for wool. So I have like plushies I'm looking at trying to describe their different hairs. I might have multiple plushies. I think throughout this semester it's just growing. They're my moral support. So clumping is if you want to make like, oh, perfect example. See, this is why they're here. I don't know if you can actually see this, but the hair like clumping together. The hairs sometimes like group up, squat up. It usually happens a lot with like wet fur. But here's like super defined. Oh, perfect example. These are all here for educational purposes. So if I increase this slider, you should see our hairs becoming little squads. So usually hair will have like a little bit of a clump, or fur. Hair will really just have it if it's like, or like straight hair will more have it if it's wet. Shape for clumping is going to be if it's curving outward as a group or if it's curving inward as a group. So you can define the shape of your clump. Clump noise is just going to add some like messiness to it, some more like randomness to it. You can see it's just like whamming it around. Roughness is going to be our guinea pig example. So like the little like rough fur on guinea pigs. If I increase the, I increased it too much. If we increase the roughness, you can see it's adding like scruffiness to the fur. If you don't see what's happening really well, it could be the scale is like really big compared to your model. So if you just decrease the size, you should see the roughness a bit better. So you can change like randomness to make it a little bit more random, scruffy. But really the main thing for this is getting it scruffy, getting it rough. And then the last section we have kink. And we have 5 different presets. We have spiral, braid, wave, radial, or curl. And let me undo my roughness so you can see. But it's basically choosing the path of your like hair strand. So curl, it's like curling the strand. Braid, it takes the clumps and tries to like kind of braid them. Is it gonna do it for me? Kind of, a little bit. But for when you have these on, you're really gonna play with the amplitude and the frequency. Amplitude is gonna be like how exaggerated it is from either straight line to like full braid curls. And then frequency is how many times it's like twisting. So something like curl, if we increase that frequency, you can see it's like spinning more and more. So it's adding more curls. hold on. This is important. Oh, they stopped. They're seriously like wrestling right in the corner of my eyesight right now. I'm so sorry. I cannot focus. Okay. So, yes, this is going to be the actual like shape of that strand. How well it does, if yours is just like doing this weird like right angle when you put one of these on, this is where the step amount for render and viewport are gonna become useful. So if you don't have like 6 steps set for your render or your viewport steps, this is gonna help them like look a little bit more defined. So now that we have the characteristics of our hair all in place, what we can do next is actually style the hair. So, so far it's just been sliders within the particle properties tab, but now we're actually going to go up to our, like, what is it, fur editor? Particle edit. So, before when we hit tab, swap between object and edit mode, the top left corner, you can see it's changing object and edit. And it has a drop down. So if you click on it, you're going to see all of these different like edit options. Today we're going to look at particle edit and then weight paint. So particle edit, the one with the little comb, is the one to style our hair. So grab particle edit and you're just going to see like the spiky parents again, just so that there's less to work with, so we don't crash. But really we want to start combing the hair. That default one you should be on, comb. You can change how large it is and the strength of it, but once you hold down left click and drag it across your fur, you can see you can start choosing the direction for your fur to lay. So you have a couple different options in here. You have comb to kind of like tell it which direction to go. So usually fur on an animal is going to be going a certain direction. You're probably always going to want to give it a nice comb. If you comb too much, there is a puff option further down. So if I use this, it will start lifting the hairs up again. We have also a add hair. So if you need like more hair in one area, you can do add hair. There is length, so you can grow hair in specific parts of the model. There is also cut, so you can give a haircut to your model. So all of this is going to take like a lot of refinement probably once you're actually pursuing a specific type of hair. We'll pretend I did this really well. It always turns out so ugly because I just like willy-nilly use the tools. We hope for the best. Hope for the best. Okay, so once we have our hair all styled, go back in object mode. It's not bad. We have a fur ball. Successful fur ball. Once we have this all styled, we're probably going to want to add a material to it. So for now it's just gray. If you did put it on something that already had a material on it, I think it's still gray. It could be the color of that other material. But let's go into our shading menu set. And then let's just pop on a new material. This first material that we pop on, if you don't have one already, is going to be the material of the skin. So this sphere beneath, this is going to define its... Oh my gosh, our fur is too thick. Oh, we don't have, that's why we don't have the material preview on. So it's changing everything to be this yellow color, but really this material is specifically for the skin beneath the fur. So to get the hair material, we're going to add a second material to this object. So to do that, at the top of the material editor menu, you're going to hit that plus sign. It's going to make a new slot for material, so you can hit plus new again. And for this material, rather than using the default principled BSDF, you're going to click on that, and it's going to bring up a menu set of all the different shader options. And we specifically for hair want the principled hair BSDF. So this is going to like have material characteristics specifically for getting hair to look like hair. So you don't have to like, it'd be more work basically to make hair material with the principled BSDF. So principled hair BSDF. And then let me name this to fur. Fur. And we see nothing change. It still looks yellow, and this is because we need to apply the fur's material within the particle settings. So even though now we have two materials applied to our object, we have to go to the particle properties again, and now is when we go under the render tab, because we want to define what it looks like in the render, which includes its material. And we see there is a material option with a little drop down. It's on the skin one right now, which because that was like the first material we popped on it. But if we open that drop down, it'll list all of the materials associated with that object. So I'm going to choose fur. And if I go into my cycles render preview, so it looks just like black and Eevee, because material preview just default uses Eevee. If I go here, if I drag my light out so I can see what's going on, I should have set up like an actual lighting scenario. You can see I have luscious hair. And this isn't the end product again. This is a tenth of how much hair there's going to be. So this is the end product. If we do not crash. There it is. So here's how much hair there is going to be. Put that back down at 10. And I'm going to make my hair hot pink because why not? So, up until this point, it's been putting this hair particle system across the entire object, but for like more specific scenarios, you might want, like for head hair, you only want the hair on the head. For like eyebrows, you only want the eyebrow spot. Mustache, you only want a mustache spot. And it also might be dependent on like different types of hair on something. So if there's like longer hair on a certain part of a body, you might have a different fur particle setup, like settings, than fur for a different part of the body. So you might have multiple particle systems designated to be specific parts of the body. So to do that, we're going to do something called weight painting. So let me go back to viewport shading again. And then let me did I turn this back down to 10? I did. Okay, good. And I might actually put this down on like 1 for now, just so we can fully see what I'm about to do. So weight painting is the strat we're going to use to get hair on our doll, but I'm just really quick going to show on the sphere what it does, since we already have like fur set up. So this is another edit tab in our object mode edit mode drop down. So click on that, and you want weight paint, which is the little dumbbell doing itself a painting. So weight paint, and with this it should just turn your whole model blue if you're in shaded mode, simple shaded. We have this blue model, and what we're going to do is paint a heat map basically on the model. So you can choose the size of your brush with radius. There's also like different options. Mainly I swap between draw and subtract. Draw, if I hold down left click and just squiggle on here, you can see it is drawing red on it with a transition between the colors. If I switch to subtract, I can draw the blue back on there. And what these colors mean are, for the purposes we're going to use it, red is going to be where hair is, blue is going to be where hair is not, and then the stuff between is going to be like a transition. So basically red is 100%, and then blue is 0%. When you're painting, you might notice, where's draw, that it like draws a little chonkily, and this is determined by where your vertices are placed. So normally for fur, you don't really need to care about having a higher poly object. You usually want to keep having your low poly stuff, unless you're going to be doing weight painting, because weight painting is going to allow you to paint in more detail, specifically where that fur is going to be lining up. So you can see, since I didn't do shade smooth on here, it's kind of following specifically where the corners of my faces are meeting to, it's like doing it on a grid, based off of our meshes grid. I'm so pleased with this circle. So once we start the hair on the doll, it's a low poly object, so it's a lot more difficult to control. So that's something you might want to end up putting a subdivision surface on and then applying it to get more info to work with. But once we have something, whatever we want drawn on here, pretend this is what I want. This is what we're going to use to define where the fur is going to go. So it's going to be in this red area. It's not going to be in the blue area. We have a couple more tools you might want to play around with. Gradient's really helpful to just do like a wide transition from thick to thin. There's also like blur and smear that you can play around with. But other than that, to get it to actually apply, you're going to, again, in the particle system, scroll to the very bottom. So very bottom where it says vertex groups. I skipped over all of this business. This is more if you want like physics and stuff to happen. But we're going to go under vertex groups. And we have all these different options we can apply the weight map to. So we can have it define length, the clump. We're going to put it under density. And this is the group we made. And you can see, oh, I made a different doll head. Look at her, she's pretty. So this is it under density. I'll show you what it looks like under length. It looks very similar, but basically because blue means like it's very short or like cut completely. So this is how you can designate specific areas. So you can do multiple weight maps. and multiple different particle systems. So say I want like some hair just in this blue spot. If I want more than one weight map, this is a vertex group. So we worked with these with our cloth. The vertex group is like a group of vertices from our mesh are defining this weight map, which are under our object data properties, which is the little green icon. So here you can see group. This is the default group we made when we did the weight painting. So if we hit the plus sign to make a new one, it's making our whole object blue again, and we can paint onto it again. And then if I click on that first one, you can see our old weight map, and then here's our new one. So these are completely different. I could then use the second map with the second set of particles to have fur grow out the front of my sphere. So this particle system, this curly hair, is connected to this first group. So I'd usually recommend naming these. I'm not naming these. Usually you have like hair, eyebrows, face fur, I don't know. We can call this like curls. And this will be straight because I'm not going to change any of the settings. I'm just going to leave it the like default spikies. And then we would probably also be naming our different particle systems. So this is the curls. If I hit that plus sign, I can make a new particle system, and this will be my straight hair, which we can hit hair, and then right away I'm just going to go down to density and pop that straight option. So you can see our beautiful, beautiful creation. So these two different particle systems are going to have completely different controls for them. So you can see popping in this new one, it's back to the default spike. So I'd have to go through the children setup if I want all of the like smaller hairs. I can do the roughness, the clumping, the kink setup. So beautiful, beautiful. So this is what we're going to do with the doll really quick, just to like re-go over. So in object mode, first, because I know my doll has a mirror modifier, if I tried to do weight painting on this right now, it technically only has vertices on one half of the doll. So I need to apply my mirror modifier in object mode. There we are. And really quick, I'll just draw a line on weight painting with the low poly so you can see what the difference is. But if I do weight painting now, and you can see I'm like, my mouse is hovering over here and nothing is being drawn. It's because I haven't overlapped a vertex yet. So that's how low poly it is. So it's really hard to get a detailed weight paint map. But if I apply my subdivision surface, now I'm going to have all of these little vertices to work with. And you can see I can be much more defined with how the hair is laying than before. And I'm not going to do the I almost called them mushrooms. Eyebrows. I'm not going to do eyebrows for this tutorial, but playing around with them after class, I added like more knife loop cuts around the head right at the eyebrow level, and I was able to get them a little bit better, because otherwise they're just like squares above their eyes. So I'm just gonna color on a beautiful red buzz cut. Did a hotkey on accident that I didn't know existed. Oh, holding down right click. Holding down right click, you can easily change your radius and your weight. I knew that. That was just demonstrating naturally. That's handy. I think the only way I knew was like holding down a keyboard button and then like dragging your mouse. Okay, here's my beautiful hair setup. And then again, you can do draw and then subtract if you want to subtract some hair. We'll do a balding doll. Okay. So let us put this hair on here. So again, our particle system, this weight paint map that we just made goes under our vertex group. So this is going to be our like head of hair. I might potentially in my free time do eyebrows, so that would be my vertex group called hair and then vertex group called eyebrows. And then under our particle system, we're going to hit plus sign for a new one. This is specifically going to be for the doll's hair. And then let's pop immediately, go from emitter to hair. And now we're done. Look, spiky doll, perfect. No, we're gonna scroll down to where it says vertex groups and pop on that hair weight map, and then we can go back and do all of the settings that we did before. So change the length, increase how many steps we have so that the hair will be more defined in future steps. Increase the steps for your future steps. We can add children. We can change, oh my gosh, sorry, this is opening all the tabs. I'm just trying to speed run what we went over. And then we can do hair shape to change how thick it is. And we can also go to our particle edit mode to comb the hair and have it lie a specific way, give it direction, give it a haircut, change the hair length a little bit differently. And then to put a material on it. So actually this already has a oh, look at that. That's pretty neat. It's like a what is that? Badminton. What are those called? Ritter sprocket? What are the badminton thingies? I don't have y'all here to tell me the words. Shuttlecock, that's it. Okay. I made a shuttlecock. So for the material, right now it is not have a material. Or it has the material of the doll itself and it's just showing up a little drab. So we're going to want to add that hair, principled hair BSDF. So click on principled BSDF, you can find principled hair. We're going to give him, let's give him blue hair. And then to actually apply it, you have to do that in the particle properties under the render tab where it says material, and then you can select it. Beautiful. So that's just general hair settings. Depending on like what kind of hair you want to go for, you're gonna have to play around with these sliders differently. So if you want like fur on like a stuffed animal, will be different from fur on an animal, different from hair on a person. You might even like I said before, you can use it for like grass or like carpet and such. So just be careful though, because it is expensive, or like brain power expensive for your computer. So that is all for this tutorial. There are a lot of fur tutorials online, so feel free to like explore YouTube to find more specifics. So I'll see you guys next time.